Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is another episode of YEG Vice with Jason Bale on Bend Over Mondays on the Locker Room. Okay. Now, this is a new segment, and you're probably going to hear us talking about this more than a couple of times if we end up doing this weekly. Bike lanes. But the reason why it is specifically poignant right now, Jason, is based on this most recent budget where they're suggesting that they need to increase our property taxes by 7%. And Jason, you've come up with a strategy where they could actually make some cuts where they wouldn't have to increase taxes.
Yeah, so I have some theories of money that doesn't need to be spent.
Okay. And does that include bike lanes?
It does, to agree. Not all the bike lanes, right? I get that there's some degree of need for bike lanes, but I mean, do I need one within 400 meters of my house? Because that's the new standard.
They're saying that what is their hard on about bike lanes? I don't get it.
I don't get it either. It's the solution for everything. Oh, your knee hurts? More bike lanes. You got a headache? More bike lanes.
It's bizarre. You'd think that the focus would be on transit, no?
Transit, yes. That's one that I'd focus on. I mean, I hate driving. I want to take the bus, but I don't want it to take 2 hours, and I don't want to get stabbed.
Yeah. Well, they are working on, to their credit, they are working on it. Let's just throw some numbers out there, Jason, because I had this idea in my head that they had plans for like a $100 million project. You're saying that the bike lane project that's in front of the city council that they've approved, that they're moving forward with gradually over the next 5-6 years?
A little more than that. Two budget cycles, 8 years.
8 years, okay. Is $600 million.
Yeah, so historically, bike lanes have cost us about $1 million per kilometer.
Good Lord.
And they're looking at 678 kilometers. This 100 million that they're spending is for 130 kilometers. So still close to that $1 million mark. But they think the 678 is only going to cost them 300 million. So it's like they're just arbitrarily throwing out numbers and saying, oh, yeah, this is totally what it'll cost us.
And they're not looking back at past construction projects revolving around bike lanes that actually have it estimated at about how much?
About $1 million per lane kilometer. Good
Lord. So that doesn't include inflation either.
No, it doesn't. That's in 2015-16, the downtown network, the 7.1 kilometers was 7.5 million.
Jesus. Okay, so the 600 plus kilometers of bike lanes in the next 8 years, they're saying it's going to cost 300 million.
Yep.
The better math is, if you take a look at what they've already done, is 600 million. If you throw inflation on it, what are we looking at in the next 8 years?
In the next 8 years after inflation, probably in the neighborhood of $700-800 million.
So they want to spend $100 million a year for the next 8 years on bike lanes.
That's what it looks like the plan says. They want it all done by 2030.
That's insane, right? Like I can't be the only one. Like Grant, like I'm not even anti-bike lane, but that's asinine.
Well, even if you are a bike lane supporter, too much of a good thing is a thing that exists, right? So even if you do like them, there is such thing as too much, and you want some moderation.
Oh my God! Like my heart is just like literally I feel my chest tightening up. This is so dumb. Like how do you stop this? Is there a possibility that somebody without their head completely up their ass gets into the city council and puts a stop to this, or is this what we're dealing with?
I think so. I'm not sure if it'll be this election cycle because the 100 million that they're putting into bike lanes is supposed to be built in 2026, which is a year after the next election. So maybe this election, people see what's going on. Maybe it'll be 2029 instead.
That's crazy. If your taxes are going up 7, 8, 9, 10%, right? And on already it's difficult to live, right? And then they don't take away money from the bike lane budget, people are going to lose. Well, I'm always surprised when people don't lose their minds. Like we should be like, honestly, we should be protesting in the streets over this. You'd think, right?
Yeah, and I mean, all of council, or most of council at least, has said we need to have these difficult conversations about the budget. Let's look at cutting police funding. Okay, if we're going to look at cutting police, let's look at cutting back on bike lanes, because every 200 kilometers or so that we build adds 1% tax increase.
That's not a difficult conversation, though. That's like anyway. Okay, we'll get you back next week. Let's have a conversation though that doesn't actually make me think that I need to call 911 because I'm gonna have a medical episode.
I'll come up with something happy next week.
Okay. All right, Jason Bale. Thank you for your time this morning. You take care, my friend.
Thanks, Locke.